Hello everybody, welcome back to From Rhythm to Algorithm. We're back in the park. We have a nice little audience member today. If you look over my left shoulder, we can see the wonderful boys in blue from the Genoa Township. Article 1, Section 8, Subsection 7. What does that say? Or Section 8, I guess. But we are back at it, working through our definition of sensorality. Just there's a little irony that there's a police officer in the back of this shot while I'm literally talking about my constitutional rights being profoundly violated, because they are. But still doing science. So where did we finish up yesterday? So yesterday we've talked about base and basis. And what are we doing there? What's really going on there? So we've made some progress. And like I said again, I've already done all of these identities and proofing. It's like deriving the fundamental theorem of calculus. You do it for the first time, no one's ever seen it before, and then they're like, do it again. And then you miss one little step and it's like, oh, yeah, everything doesn't count. Obviously that isn't true. But like I said, all of this proofing has already been demonstrated. And so, right, what do we say? We said a set is set. Group, category, set. Something is invariable, it is set, right? You say ready, set, go. What are you saying when you say set there? Right? See how you're ready, set, you're fixed, you're in a poised position to move, go. And so now we have our basis, right? We say our basis is fundamental stability of 2. Right? Look at the word basis. Be as is. If something is set, it is as is. So a basis is set, both literally, logically, and mathematically. It's fixed, it doesn't change. The past, we live in 3 dimensions. That's where our conservation laws have domain or jurisdiction, so to speak. But 2 is fixed. Right? You've never interacted with a stable dynamic with 2-dimensional components. All right? That's why you have all these counting systems have 1, 2, many. It's because 1 and 2 are stabilized physical dynamics, and they're past and they're set. The basis is as is 2. So that was a very poignant result in development. But our set basis is cardinality 2, which is a huge result. That means anytime you say the word basis, you're referring to 2. Right? We talked about efficiency last time, how cien is literally 100 in Spanish. And the natural basis of the world is 2, but our codified mathematical basis that we've done through all of theory with all mathematicians everywhere is base 10, and it's physically wrong or inconsistent. So that's a massive, massive result. But think about it, right? We said ready, set, go, right? Which one of these is not a word? If something doesn't go to plan, you regroup. If something doesn't go to, or didn't start the way you wanted to, you reset. When do you recategory? Never. Right? And so there's another bit of logic. We just, somehow this prefix regroup, reset, we use it every single day. Recategory, never. And right? It's not even a word. So you have restart, refresh, reset, reduce, reuse, recycle. So again, these 3, we need 3 words to define a new axiom. And so working towards that today, but that was very poignant. You don't say recategory, you do say reset, and you do say regroup, naturally, empirically today. And then ready, set, go is you're talking about physically being poised, not moving, being fixed. So that is very literal. And then our set basis has a cardinality of 2. And that is completely done. But how about this? Another thing I noticed was, well then physically, our physical basis of 2 is rhythm and vibration. Vibration being the fundamental basis, the frequent basis, literally. Vibration produces frequency. When I say the word fundamental, that was another big connection. When I say the word fundamental intuitively, I mean frequency. It's how often somebody uses it, right? If it's a fundamental verb, it's used a lot, so it's most frequent. But anything else from there? Yeah, so vibration and rhythm are our physical basis. It explains all motion, or lack of motion. Rhythm describes all motion, vibration describing things that aren't moving. We went through that explicitly already. But look at the words like settle. If we go from settle to settling, right? See how we chop off that E, right? If you go from mumble to mumbling, you chop off that E entirely. So what's really going on there? And in the same kind of logical sense, right? If I say sensorality is explanatory, right? My chair is not going to explain anything to me. Life, sentience explains things. But if I spell the word explain, there's an I in it. E-X-P-L-A-I-N. If I spell explanatory, it's based on plan. Right? So very clearly that I, right, explanatory, the word you use is explain for the different word forms, but you drop that I. So again, we've talked about this with speciality. I've demonstrated it with speciality. What exactly is happening there? Some of these words, mumbling, humbling, bumbling, you chop off that last E and just add ing. And a lot of these words, from explanatory to explain, you add an I. And again, because both the letter I and the letter E represent the sound E sometimes. It's like, what's really going on there? Not sure. But grade, another example, grade, gradient. Both for the linguistic evidence that you add that I, right? Grade, and then gradient, you have an I and a T. So again, T is very past tense. A lot of the ending with T and ending with D is similar type of functionality. But a gradient, what is it, right? Again, that's another emergent thing because of discreteness. You have gradation, a grade, A, B, C, or D. You know, your language grade is A1, B, A2, B2, BC1, whatever. And so that emerges because of discreteness, but again, why is that I in there? And then, but what is a gradient in general, right? A gradient is a spectrum, right? And so what those kind of, again, just spectrum and gradient are words that exist because both particle and wave-like motion exists. Or, you know, there's discrete things, but it's on a continuum. And not particle or wave, particle and wave. What's a scale? Indiscriminate size, doesn't matter. Scale doesn't matter. Proportionality matters. And proportionality holds because of congruence. Same like you have congruent triangles in geometry right now. That's all I just said. But, so we did the mumbling rhythm, did all of this. But I did a short, or I said it on one of my book club episodes today, but rights are constitutional. Right is a direction. R-I-G-H-T is going to the right. The opposite of left is right, R-I-G-H-T. Anybody debate that? So then what's a right, R-I-T-E? Because if someone says I have rights, me included, I kind of think about like, wait, how am I supposed to spell that? Even when I type out R-I-T-Y or R-I-T-E on the screen, I'm like, is that it? But it is, because the opposite of left is right, R-I-G-H-T. Right? And words have unique context or unique meaning. And so R-I-T-E derives from ritual, that's your rite of passage, right? And so, right, but then right meaning correct is R-I-G-H-T. So you have a direction right, you have correctness that is right, but if you have a right, like a ceremonial right, a constitutional right, it's R-I-T-E. I don't know why, again, I don't make the rules, that's just what the words, that's what they represent. Right derives from ritual, it's a rite of passage. That's where that kind of phrasing comes from. But the biggest thing was that basis is set, and it's as is set. Right? That's literally logically consistent. That's literally what it means. But are vowels or consonants set or fixed? Meaning, again, when I'm showing this iteration, what is iterating? Is it the vowels and the consonants? Is it just the vowels? Is it just the consonants? Is one fixed and one variable? Is one set, the basis set, and what's not set? Well, how do we apply those things to this? The iteration function of language. And so, again, we keep coming back to this. The thing in English, you'll learn I before E except after C. Which again, at face value, any grouping or rule or heuristic that has exceptions isn't a rule. You've formulated something incompletely because you can't answer stuff completely. And so as demonstrated. But like you say the word, right, we did the word receive. Like that one, right, I spelled it wrong, but that was just me spelling it wrong. Like the word either, right? In physics, you'll say, you know, where does the ether exist? Was a big thing in the early 1900s. Michelson-Morley's experiment. And right, but the word, right, is the ether real? Well, yes. Like, so in that context, they're basically saying, is there a mass gap? And there is a mass gap, right? There's information isn't propagated through something. It just is. The information is. But the word either exists, right? Either or. And so it's pairs. It's a preposition that pairs to that, or it's a word that pairs to or. What exactly is a preposition? I'm just talking about words that change the direction of logic. And so, like, what do people mean by ether? You know, this pervasive substrate, but again, that's wrong. There's a mass gap. And so that's kind of what's going on there. But the word either exists, and it's ether with an I in it. And so I'm not sure what ether applies to correctly. And it's not a pervasiveness thing, but that's why it emerged again as a word, because it's fundamentally ontological, which is used in the wrong context. Again, speciality ethers, right? It's this or that. Speciality separates. What makes me different, right, is either. So speciality ethers. Sensorality relieves speciality. Relieve, relive. How does traction relate to sensation? Right? What is the role of friction in all of this? Right? To move, you need friction. You need some sort of resistance. To sense things, you need some sort of break in tolerance, I guess, right? Like if you do a bunch of drugs and you do a little less drugs the next day, you don't really feel anything, right? How does tolerance, sensation, and friction relate, right? If you have traction, you're gaining momentum, but you can't have movement without traction. Can you have sensation without friction? No, you can't. Because if you don't feel any resistance, you wouldn't have any information to process. Sensibility is comprehensible. Syllables sustain or preserve sensibility. See how you didn't understand anything I said? Because those weren't syllables. That's all I said there. Sensibility produces reason. Reason, region. I made a short video, right? A scientist is a sensorist. We went over it last video. What is a sensorist? One who uses their senses. Right? So science, sensorist, you can see the linguistic relationship. But a scientist is a sensorist. A sensorist is one who uses their senses. Science is the process of applying sensation to analytical fact. Sufficiency is content, right? Efficiency is the maximum, right? Well, efficiency can be zero, but if you maximize efficiency, you're optimizing. If you minimize efficiency, the base is sufficient. So sufficiency produces satisfaction. If somebody's satisfied in life, it's sufficient, whatever they've done. But again, efficientality, again, efficient without the first E and F, and then financiality, right? It pairs to finance, efficient finance. And so what is finance, right? Why do we say personal finance and not just finance? Like, how does economy work? What's fiduciary? Right? What's fiscal? Right? What is financiality to fiscality? Right? Or if you're fiscal, are you financial? And what is the relationship of these words? Because really, of all of the chunks of ontology, math, physics, biology, chemistry, computer science, history, the most underdeveloped one is economics, because it requires all of this math, and it still is basically like, well, the markets aren't consolidated, human behavior isn't consistent enough to make really meaningful decisions about economy. That's true. But sensorality is fiscal. Sensorality is stingy. I just have a racism joke. I didn't know my mathematics was Jewish. I crossed the line, I don't care. I thought it was funny. Sensorality is stingy. Now remove the S, tingy. Sensorality is tingy. A tinge is a bit. Just a little bit, just a tinge, just a pinch of salt. Finishing up our derivation for today, sensorality is sensoristality, right? So now we're defining it in ontology, but really what we're doing is modifying the syllability, the letters, without modifying the logic, right? Sensorality produces sensorist, the person who is sensorial. Sensoristality is the general state of being a sensorist. So we haven't changed anything. That's just sentiment, sensation, sensuality, sexuality, all of the different words that start with SE, senses, all of those things. But we've just reformulated it, sensorist, sensoristality. Now we have new letters, just progressing to this unique sequence of letters that gives us our new logical statement. We are calculating the resolution to a question. But a sorist, right? Sorist isn't a thing, right? What comes after the letter S? QRST, sorist, tourist. Haha, Taurus in math, tourist when you're walking around in a country you don't live in. See? You don't see that form of the word because it progresses to something else. And now we're just uniterating this logic. So Professor Sean Carroll out there, hope you're doing well, buddy. Just kidding, I hope you're in jail. But anyway, he's like, if you want to go all the way back, this is the only way to completely do a proof, buddy. Oh, Caltech, you didn't pass your, I don't know what test you take, the ACT, the SAT, here's a math subject. No, ontological shock. The voice of God. Dude, this is how the world works. Be less offended by reality. So yes, I will go all the way back, but you guys still have to abide by the law. See if our police officer's still there. Oh, yep, the law's still supposed to be a thing. You drive too fast on the road behind me, you're gonna get a ticket. I go buy something, I have to pay sales tax. If I walked up and approached that officer right now, would he do anything to enforce the law? No, absolutely not. And to those watching, you might say, why don't you go to the law enforcement? Go watch them. I've already told you about the story when I went to the FBI building. They directly said they know who I am. The FBI director was like, this guy's intimidating. Not like me being intimidating, but my capacity level of intelligence. And so it's just like, I've given up. There's just nobody does. People literally don't do their job, right? All of the academics and all of the law enforcement have legal and professional obligations to do something. And literally everyone going to STEM, you're being lied to. Anybody in the college, university system since 2016 has been lied to directly by everything fundamental in science, and really a unifying theory of language applies to anything that uses language, which is fucking everything. So everybody out there, I've lost my life to this shit. You guys are just wasting a bunch of money. But I can't wait till 8.1 billion people realize that, I don't know, 100,000, a million different people at different levels of severity have literally just sabotaged the entire educational progress for the species. That's really good stuff. But a sourist is not a tourist, right? Now think of our functional definition. Source is ubiquity. Source or sensorality is everywhere. Sensorality is general. Speciality is specific, right? So if you're a sourist is not a tourist, you're a regular. You're a local, right? A local is a regular. Sensorality is regular. Speciality is irregular. And then we have regular and vulgar. Speciality is vulgar, sensorality is regular. Just progressing our logic, again, we're so far down that spiral of we're getting to this finalized, definitions are definite, this stuff will end. It's not like this is an endless, arbitrary, we're just out in the woods and we're never going to come back to a centralized theorem. We're just literally iterating every form of the word of sensorality that could exist. And so we're doing a proof by logical exhaustion, expanding a word family to a point of irreducibility, which again, all of this mathematical proof is not irrelevant, it is inevitable. It's going to happen, right? It said, once I've demonstrated this proofing method one time, it doesn't matter if it takes one person in a wow fashion or slow progress over years, everything that is provable will be proven. Just how much time will it take? So again, my constitutional rights are violated, my humanitarian rights are violated. I've been seeking asylum outside of this country for years now. I'm offering $500,000, every penny that I have to my name, for real publication or simply just get me out of this fucking shithole country where I can record science and pay my bills properly, and there's not cops in the background of my literal lecture videos breaking the law. And I'm making a video about me being the victim of crime. America is the biggest shithole ever. And again, I have no political tilt, I have no religious tilt. I'm just a dude that wanted to live his life, have a career, have a family, contribute to my community, and then I go out into the world and I say, hey guys, we're doing science wrong, and then there's profound emotional, traditional breakdowns, and people go into ontological shock. They've literally formalized being a pathetic piece of shit that can't hear facts, as opposed to just saying, hey, you're a pathetic piece of shit that can't accept a fact, change your behavior. I literally have to teach grown-ups how to grow up. But that is it for today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.